Morning, market chameleons, and soon to appear my favorite chameleon on Monday morning, Dimitri Pargamonic. How you doing, Dima?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Excellent. What's on tap for today, my friend?
So we'll continue, I think, on the customer Q&A. I think so far it's been pretty good. We've been, I think, getting good questions that I feel like have been, something that I've been hearing before. A lot of times, like some of the questions that come on, other people had these questions before because I've recognized them either through emails, through chat, and it's good to have that discussion, have that open discussion. And usually the questions I think are good because it's people are getting them from their trading experience, something that they've seen that's unusual, or sometimes they see certain things about trading, either options or stocks. Either they're learning from a class, or they're learning, maybe watching YouTube, and they bring it up, or they're learning maybe just from trading themselves, that they've done something expecting a certain type of outcome and something happened completely unexpected. When you bring that up, I think that's really good for the community, and we could open up for that discussion. And if sometimes I might not know the answer, or sometimes I learn something, but I think that there's a big benefit to the entire community. So we'll stay with that. We'll stay on course. So we're opening it up. Anybody who has a question out there are two ways to do it. One is to put it in the chat, on the live chat. Will's monitoring that, and he could read them back to me. But what we've been doing, and I think it's better, is we put out a link there to Zoom. If you click on that link, it brings you over to Zoom. You could raise your hand. This way you could ask your question live. You don't have to turn on your video camera, but we'll be able to hear the question. We'll be able to ask you what the surrounding circumstances. Maybe you could guide us to what you're specifically looking at, so we could create a visual for everybody and hopefully take it from there. Okay. So you're gonna put out the link, Will?
Already put out the link in the chat on YouTube. And so click on over to Zoom if you want to ask your questions live. I also put, again, the link to vote. Thanks to Jean, one of our most active MCs every morning. She read the fine disclosure, and you can vote once a day. So I put that link, so feel free to vote again if you want. With that, let's go to the disclaimer. What do you think?
Right, and that's voting for like a Benzingo award, right? That we're nominated Benzingo award.
We were nominated for a Benzingo award, and just an actual shout out. I went through the awards this weekend. Tom Petterfee, who was Dimitri and my first boss on the floor, is nominated for a Lifetime Achievement Award. Oh. As of now, he's in last place. Everyone should get out and vote for Thomas Petterfee. He literally changed the business. I can't believe that he's so low in the voting.
Really pushed the electronic trading. He was one of the pioneers, one of the very first people who actually said, well, when you look at trading, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of information, a lot of financial, and you take that information to create financial models, theoretical values. And when Will and I started, he was like really the first one to, we had, take technology and merge it with financial data and really, show people the way, right, that you could do electronic trading.
And more importantly, he gave you and I our starts.
We're very grateful. That's exactly.
Without Thomas Petterfee, there would be no Market Chameleon or Dimitri and Will. He gave us our first foot in the door was thanks to Tom Petterfee, which is a big deal. Yep. But the disclaimer's up if you want to read it, D.
Yeah, so before we get started, everybody keep in mind, Will and I, Market Chameleon, we're not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need professional help, call your broker. That's what they're there for, to help answer your questions and provide you with guidance. There's the disclaimer.
Excellent.
And with that, we'll get started. So while we're waiting for the questions to queue up, what I'll do is quickly go over what's going on in the pre-market hours. If there's a little bit of delay, if there are no questions coming in, I'm just going to default to some of the questions that have been coming in through either email, chat, and I'll just start going over those. while we wait for the questions to come in. Okay. So right now we're looking at the pre-market report. These are stocks trading in a pre-market hours. We got the most active stocks, biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. I'm coming down here looking at the number of stocks that made our percentage gainers list. That's 49. Number of stocks today made our percentage decliners list, 143. So from that perspective, looks like a more bearish bias at the open. I'm going to take a look at what's going on in the higher market cap stocks, see if we're looking at a different picture or something similar. So I'm going to use this market cap filter and a market cap. Let's do a 20 billion market cap or higher. And let me see, let me just refresh my screen real quick. So let's do market cap 20 billion or higher. So I see only one made the percentage gainers list, 53 on a percentage decliners list. So there, looks right now a much bigger bearish bias at the open. I only see one really that made the percentage gainers list, and that's Coinbase. So it looks like now it's starting to well below its IPO, but starting to come back. I think some of those cryptocurrencies are starting to, they sold off. I think since Coinbase went public, it was almost at the peak where those cryptos were, and then Coinbase fell. So did the cryptos. A lot of negativity starting to come back here. So Coinbase is starting to pull back.
Well, I mean, the cryptos had basically they were in a bear market, right? I mean, I think they sold off 50% from their highs.
They sold off a lot. And I think that's from what, reading and looking at history, it's not even uncommon. Like, these are the way these things move, on the way up. They have these types of violent downside moves that are very quick. And they're vulnerable to still a lot of uncertainties with regulation and, taxing and, which countries are going to allow, which countries are going to ban it. It's like, people don't understand it quite well. And the technology around it has not been developed enough that people don't see the utility behind these blockchains, right? So there are people, I think like big companies are looking at it. I was reading Microsoft starting to look at, the blockchain, Walmart, Goldman Sachs, Visa. So they're looking at the blockchain and looking at this new technology, but again, it's not yet there. It's kind of like, remember when the internet was kind of developing, we were getting the hourglass and things were very slow. We're not even to that point yet. We're getting just to that point right now with the blockchain. So right now, very hard. You got to be really into it and be a visionary. Look, much further.
This is for another show and can be discussed. I've mentioned it to you and both Jake. My brother is so into these NFTs, and the whole thing works off basically Ethereum in the blockchain, but they're selling basically like collector cards to each other. And his whole, the things he said, it's a vocabulary, it's a whole different world. And unless you're into that NFT space, just looking at it from afar, it's like trying to read a different language. It's incredible.
It's kind of like right now when the computers were first developed, and when they weren't as easy to use as they are today, right? You have these DOS commands and you would have to enter in these code that you didn't understand. And then it would just say, hello world, something like that. Like, that's kind of like where we are, but there are a lot big fans out there of this technology, and there are a lot of people out there working on it. And I think you could see MIT has a course. I think right now the SEC chairman, Gary Gensler, was teaching courses at MIT, about blockchains, about cryptocurrencies, about Bitcoin, about Ethereum. So you could go actually on YouTube and listen to him, because those courses, they were recorded and you could look it up. But the way they're talking about, if the people who are deeply into it are saying it'll be like the internet 2.0. We had like this digital information, the internet, moved information very freely, digital information. Now they're saying that the same thing should be, with you'll be able to use that blockchain over the internet to do move currencies around, payments, DeFi. So coming up with different use cases that really we can't all imagine yet, right? So, but
Yeah, well, they're talking about crypto wallets on the chat, and I heard a new one, and people may already. Do you know about rainbow wallets?
No.
That's a new term I heard, because the thing that's made the rainbow wallet exciting is not that it's not the security, which obviously with any of these crypto wallets, it's like how secure are they and worrying about the security. But the rainbow wallet shows your NFT in its most beautiful form and allows you to share the picture of it. So people are using the rainbow wallet for the way it shows the NFTs and how it allows the transfer so easy when you're purchasing your NFTs. But that's a new one that popped up on my radar. It's called a rainbow wallet.
Okay. Yeah, no, we're constantly out there. I know that our programmers are looking into, the blockchain and to start using some of this the code to slowly kind of, learn about it, develop, see what we could bring to the community as far as like our knowledge, maybe develop something, push it, to show people, how a use case of crypto, how we would be able to maybe apply it. But it's still new, it's still kind of clunky, it's still like choppy and slow and expensive. If you're trying to use like Ethereum, one of the biggest things is that it's very expensive right now to use those blockchains, to transact, because there's transaction costs every time you use the blockchain. And it's still a little bit expensive right now.
That's referred to as the gas fee or the burn rate or both those things. I mean, again, the terminology.
There's
amazing.
a lot going on.
Well, listen, back to the Q&A about Market Chameleon. We did have a question on the chat. This was on the Zoom chat from Debbie. Okay. And sounds like she may be a relatively newer chameleon, but she was watching one of your prior sessions and you went over determining if a repeat options trade was a buy or a sell. And then she's asking if a market maker pays the ask, or if a MM pays ask, does that mean it was a sell?
So I'm going to come here to the repeat options. So under the screeners, we'll go to the option block trades, and I'm going to go to the repeat trade screener. So really quickly, these are looking for block trades, but that there are at least more than one block trade on a certain contract, right? There's a repeat, something sold or bought and it traded, at least 2 or more times. And when we looked at it, and I'm going to use some of these presets, like let's say repeat, put option. And we're looking at, here's a bunch of like repeat trades. And I think, here, let me see if I could open and take a look. So sometimes what will happen is trying to find where it was happening on the ask, something like this. And I think what Debbie's saying is just because it happens on the ask doesn't necessarily mean that there's a market maker bid an offer and somebody came in and purchased it on the market making offer, okay? Because somebody could leave a limit order in between, right? So somebody could actually, who wants to sell it, instead of selling it on a bid, you don't need to sell it on a bid. You could place an offer in between the market or just leave a limit there. And if you leave a limit let's say you're trying to sell something, you could be trying to buy something, sell something, but let's just say you're trying to sell a put and you want to sell a put, but you're not satisfied with this price. So you raise your price and you leave it there. Well, if the stocks are moving down, 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 eventually the prices could reach your limit. And when they reach your limit, right, your offer will be the best offer at some point, and then somebody might come in and buy it. So really what happens is that a market maker actually could buy that offer because there was a limit on the book. The stock reached a certain point where it became a good buy, and they actually bought your sell, whatever you're trying to sell. So that's what the point I was making is, just because you see something trade on the ask doesn't necessarily mean that, a person borrowed it from a market maker. A market maker could buy something that's on the limit order book. I could take a look at this GDS, see if that was the case or not. So I'm going to click on there and just go to the options chain. So here's September. Which one was it? Let me just quickly look back. So this was the 50 put, right? So I'm looking at the 50 put here. Can't really tell. Let me just see how this traded. So I do see here, look, 25 traded at $1.80. And you can see that the bid and offer was very wide when it traded, right? So traded in between. Then I see another 2,500 traded at $1.85. That implied volatility was at 72.9. So you could see here that usually, I could see here's the market the day before. The implied vol bid was 65.8, implied vol offer 76.6. You could see very wide, $1.15, $1.70. This is where it closed, bid 67.9, offer 75.8. So this traded somewhere, in my opinion, somewhere maybe in between. Somebody might have just left an offer out there and it could have gotten scooped up. That looks like to me. I'm not sure who scooped it up. It could be a market maker, it could be anybody, right? Somebody saw it and said, that's enough, that's good enough for me and I'm willing to buy it. But here, let me show you as I'm looking on the board. So you see here, I'm looking right now on the board and I'm looking at the quotes, because the quotes themselves can tell me a lot about what might be going on. Those are the quotes are people interested to buy, people interested to sell, put out their bids and offers. And these quotes do not necessarily have to be market making quotes, because you can put in a bid, a limit bid and a limit offer, and it could be in between the current markets. So over here, let's say the market is $1.60, bid, offer 225. Well, if I want to buy this for $1.80 and I put in a bid for $1.80, nobody sells it to me right away, this quote will change to $1.80, right? It should reflect my bid if it didn't trade. And I could be the only one bidding there. So it's not reflecting really a market making quote, it's reflecting my interest to bid, right? That's my interest or my bid. So, and somebody could come in and bid higher than I. So one way, I'm just looking at it right now, and I could see that the quotes in this stock are pretty wide. And look at this. This one looks pretty narrow to me. 70 cents a dollar, right? Here's $1.60, 225, 310, 4. Everywhere I look, 90 cents. But this one looks pretty narrow to me. So just looking here, can you tell, somebody can tell like what might be going on here? And to me, it looks like, look, I could see where the offers are. These are the implied volatilities, right? They're helping me out. So I could see around here, there's a 67 offer, implied volatility 66. This one drops to 61, and this one goes back to 69.72. So here, to me, I'm looking at somebody, if because if I'm looking for consistency where the market makers, how wide they are, to me, it looks like somebody is trying to sell this option and went in between the market making quotes at $1. So what does this mean? Maybe if a market maker could buy it at $1, if he thinks it's cheap enough, or maybe if he wants to hedge, like here's a bid here, or he sells this at 80 cents, maybe then he'll just scoop this off the book at $1 to complete the spread, so I think the point maybe to Debbie, what she was asking is sometimes when you look at something trade on the bid or some trade on the offer, doesn't necessarily mean that an incoming order sold it to the market maker or bought it from the market maker. Sometimes it could be reverse. It could be that there's a limit order on the book and it's sitting there and somebody could have just traded with that limit order. Does that make sense? Does that help answer her question?
Well, yeah, she said, yes, following you makes great sense. Nice job, Pete.
Thanks. And again, I don't answer completely the question.
Hey, D, you just went underwater in the Atlantic Ocean. It sounded garbled. You may want to jump out and come back in, my friend.
Okay. Let me try to do it.
With that, a couple housekeeping notes. We have Mike H just joined the house. Nice job, Mike. We have a webinar with Raj on tomorrow at 6 p.m. So I will put out a link for Raj's webinar, which he's always interested in. I think he's going to talk a little bit about how he's using the Discord. For anyone new who's not on the Discord, email me at williammcbride@gmail.com. I will send you a link to the Discord that is run by, it's run by the entire Chameleon community, but it was kind of started by Jake, aka the doctor, who still is not feeling well, which is a little terrifying. I don't know exactly what's wrong with the doctor. I don't know if anyone's heard, but I hope and am praying that he gets better soon. I know he said he lost like 8 kilograms or something, and just last week still not feeling well. I will put out the link again to vote for Market Chameleon on Benzingo for the FinTech Award we were nominated for, which would be great. Let me see if you vote. Let me see if D's back on. D, you there?
Hey, yeah.
Great.
Just came back in.
Awesome.
Okay. So just leaving out, hopefully that helped answer that question. Let me know if there's a follow-up to that. But just wanted to give like a quick demonstration of what we were, I think that was the question that we answered.
Perfect.
Okay.
I know last week, I think it was our buddy Mike from Tyler, Texas, was asking about any new things you may be working on, or could show. That was one of the questions.
Yeah. So there are a couple things, we're always working on new things, but I'm going to tell you what's coming up. I don't have it ready right now because as we're developing, we're working out the bugs and testing as much as we can internally. Really, once we push it out, that's the bigger test, because as more users are using it in different ways that we didn't think about, that's when we start like kind of getting more of the bugs appear. So a couple things that are coming up, closer to coming up. One is that we're enhancing the unusual option volume report. So it'll be on this report. One of the things we're adding is a 12-day look back. So you'll be able to have another report where it kind of shows all these in one report, when we're going back to see how many times did a stock appear on the unusual option volume in the last 12 days. What happened to the stock that day, the next day, where is it currently, the option volume, the unusual option volume, where was the implied volatilities, the breakdown of the option volume. So this way you could kind of just get a sense of certain stocks that have been on the unusual option volume, how many times they've been on there in the last 12 days and what's been happening to them. So that's one of the things that's coming up. Another is that we're working to enhance the price action. So, we started splitting these up. So over here, large block trades, we're going to be taking a look at them from a different breakdown of, when we look at the volume, right? When we look at the total volume in the stock, 1.6 million or whatever, or this is option, sorry, 59 million shares traded in Apple. Well, what's going on in that volume, right? Like, how does it break down? How much of that volume was big blocks, like institutions trading, a block of $1 million worth of stock or $500,000 worth of stock. Where did it trade? Were they sweep trades? Were they dark pool trades? How much volume was at the open? How much volume was at the close? So this starts to paint a different picture of the breakdown in the volume, because here, this is usually, you always see it in aggregate, right? So was this volume, was it all 100 shares that added up to 59.4 million? Were some of it bigger blocks? And when did they trade? What time did they trade? And how does it compare to historical? So again, more breakdown of the intraday volume, okay, to kind of start putting the pieces together, building yourself the puzzle. What's going on? Who are the traders involved? The other one we're working on, which might be a little bit longer term, will be trade alerts. And these are trying to centralize alerts from the website. So right now, we use a lot of different screeners here for strategies like vertical spreads, calls, puts, condors, straddles. And you kind of, have to go to each one of them, maybe to get an idea, or go to a specific symbol. We have some trade ideas on a specific symbol. This will be more of a centralized place where it's scanning our different strategies, scanning the markets, and trying to find something of interest, either unusual or trade setup or earnings, upcoming earnings. And it'll be more of like a stream of alerts coming in. Okay. So those are things that we are working on right now that I'm testing, that I think will be coming up, imminently down the road, like closer. Maybe the trade alerts, I still have a lot of work there to do, but I could see it now, internally. I do see the product. I see the things working. I'm monitoring it, changing things around, but that will always be like an evolving feature. So obviously the trade alerts is something that once we push it out, people like it, then we'll continue to work on improving it over time.
That's awesome, D.
Yep. So I guess if nothing else, Will, so almost 9:30, unless you have like some quick questions.
No questions, but food for thought. Mike McCrae, who's on quite a bit, says the site is amazing. Thanks. Great job, D. When researching possible earnings plays, it would be helpful to have a filter for option average daily volume, and also to add a filter for companies that trade weeklies. He's just mentioned that. I know Mike's on all the time. That's why I thought I'd put that over. Be aware, best way to get that information in front of us is email support@MarketChameleon.com. We do read all the emails, and sometimes they lead to new features within the Chameleon. So it's always helpful to hear what Chameleons want. Great job, Dima.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Have a good trading day. Stay safe out there, and hope to see you guys tomorrow.
Trade in peace, Chameleons. We'll see you tomorrow on